Hey, everybody. Happy Wednesday night. I almost forgot what day it was. I'm Anjanette Levy. Thanks so much for joining me here at my channel. Please remember, if you are logging in and just joining us, and if you haven't already, please subscribe, hit the bell. Please give me a thumbs up, the like. That helps with the algorithm and helps, just get the video out there a little more. We have some big news. I don't think it's really that unexpected if you've been following the Bryan Kohberger case. But Bryan Kohberger wants a continuance. And he wants this continuance in small part, because of the whole Dateline special. So we'll get into that here in just a little bit. I'm starting a little bit early because I was sitting here getting ready and reading the motion, and I was getting a little antsy, and I saw people in the chat, and I thought I should just log in and start early. Why not? And I'm going to adjust the camera a little bit here. For some reason, my colors changed. I'm usually purple on here, but whatever. I guess we're going to go with purple tonight. I don't know how it changed just in the last 2 minutes with me logging on. Actually, here, now we're back to purple. So I got my color back. But again, thanks for joining me tonight. Trying to do more stuff during the week. I don't do that many things during the week. It's usually during the weekends that I do these, or on Friday nights. So let's go through before we really start digging into what Ann Taylor is saying and go through some of your comments. Graciela Gracie G, I should say, mispronouncing that, is 9:52 a.m. here. Just made my coffee. That sounds amazing. 9:52 in the a.m. and making coffee sounds amazing. So good morning to you. Hi, Taya Toys. Taya Toys is in the house. Hello. And I need to say hello to Webby and Monty. And of course, Melmac is up here somewhere. Let me find Melmac and shout her out. Shouting out everybody who's helping moderate for me tonight. All the mods. Melmac, I don't see you in here, but I know you're here. There you are. Melmac is here as well. So thanks to everybody for pitching in and helping me out tonight. Von Krul is in the house. Von Krul says, delay, delay, delay. This judge isn't buying BS though. Well, we'll see. I don't know. Part of me doesn't think he's going to delay this trial, but you never know. Ann Taylor has filed a 40-page motion. 40-page motion requesting a continuance. And we're going to dig into a little bit of it here in just a little bit. We're also going to talk a little bit more about the whole Dateline special and what we've kind of learned since it's aired. There's some stuff floating around out there on the internet about, what Dateline has or found out, that type of thing. We know a lot of what they found out. And you'll see Ann Taylor's comments about it. We haven't heard what she thought about it until now, but it was pretty interesting what she wrote. Janet Brissett is here. Hello, Janet Brissett. Hello, Double Cap. Hello, CH. I'm going through all the names to see who all is here. Hello, Thomas McCarthy. Hello, Angel D. All right. And hello, Mr. Popinski. Yes, Mr. Popinski. Mr. Popinski said I should start early, so I did. Mona Lisa, Arizona is in here too. And so is Say No to Nuclear War. So yeah. Hi, everybody. All right. So let's get into it. Let's pull up this motion for a continuance. There was also a sealed hearing today that's raised a lot of questions, like what on earth could it be? And the sealed hearing basically it was about the role of victims. And I'll pull up that document as well, because I think there are maybe like some hints in there, some clues, maybe, but not really, because it's just a notification about the hearing. But here is Ann Taylor's motion for a continuance. And it is just simply stated, called the motion to continue. Also, too, I forgot to mention, if you're watching on replay, I love it when everybody watches on replay too. I love when I go back into the comments and I see, hey, watching on replay or replay crew. So thank you. If you're watching this on replay, thank you for coming back and watching on replay. I really appreciate it. Oh, hi, Psychosaurus Rex. Psychosaurus Rex is here. Anne has no concept of time management. She spends all her time on her other cases she technically wasn't allowed to have, and writing motion after motion after motion. Also, hi, friends. All righty. Mandy Strong says, shame on Dateline. Why did they have to release that episode now? Well, Ann Taylor is saying the same thing. So let's get back into the motion. So it's 40 pages, as I said, and it lists a bunch of stuff. Here we are in the table of contents, and she goes through all these Roman numerals. I'm like totally flipping my words around. Roman numerals. She has Roman numerals for all this stuff. This court has an obligation to uphold Mr. Kohberger's constitutional rights by vacating the trial date because defense counsel needs additional time to review discovery and prepare for the complex merits and sentencing phase unique to death penalty cases. We've heard her say that many times. So that's nothing new. Mr. Kohberger has myriad constitutional rights during these proceedings, all of which are dependent on counsel having the time and resources to prepare for a capital trial in accordance with established professional norms. Well, we know that the Judge Hippler, and he does not take any, guff from anybody. He's already told her to hire more paralegals. He's told her to, seek more assistance from the judge who oversees the resources in this case. Mr. Kohberger is entitled to an individualized sentencing determination, a constitutional right that is uniquely reserved for defendants facing the death penalty. So I'm sure that's true. He has the right to qualified expert assistance as part of the guarantees to effective assistance of counsel and an individualized sentencing proceeding. Number 3, counsel's professional and ethical obligations in a capital case. They go through those. And she talks about a bunch of things. All right, let's skip ahead to number 4. Counsel requires additional time to fulfill the minimum requirements described above. She's saying we need more time. We simply need more time. So I feel like they had to have been working on this before Dateline. They had to have been writing this and planning to file this, but even before Dateline, because this seems like this was probably a lot of work. I know this is what lawyers do. They write motions, they pull case law, they do all this stuff. But this seems to me like a great deal of work to put this together. And I don't know, maybe it's not. Maybe this is just what lawyers do. And she did this over the last week and a half, but I doubt it. This probably, I'm assuming, was part of their strategy all along, but because she's been saying forever that she can't get through the 68 terabytes of evidence. But then I feel like because of where the Dateline stuff is, I feel like they've been working on this brief for a while, on this motion. If you're just joining, because I know I did start this early, thank you so much for joining. I got antsy and started early, so I hope that was okay. But we are here talking about the motion that Ann Taylor has filed today seeking a continuance. She actually filed it yesterday, but it didn't become available to the public until today. And basically, she's saying, we need more time, we need more time, we need more time. We haven't had time to prepare a proper defense. There's 800 bazillion, terabytes, 68 terabytes of discovery that we've received, and we haven't gone through all of it. And we just need more time. And then boom, Dateline lands in their lap like a bomb, the Dateline special. And I feel like they slid that kind of in there at the last minute and wrote about that. So if you're just joining, because I started early, we just started about 9 minutes ago or so. Thank you so much for joining in. Please like, subscribe, and if you're watching on replay, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So let's now look at the Dateline part of this. She gets to that down here below at one point. A continuance is necessary to remedy the prejudice. Sorry. Here we go. Number 5, a continuance is necessary to remedy the prejudice of highly inflammatory publicity released just weeks before the current trial date, including the recent Dateline special and a forthcoming book. So we knew there was like more coming. I had kind of forgotten about the James Patterson book, but this is what she's referring to. And the James Patterson book, it's coming out right before the trial starts. Which is kind of like, whoa. And I don't know how many people are sitting around watching or reading James Patterson's books. I just don't. But he's a best-selling author, so you know he'll be doing a media tour. But here it is on Amazon. You can pre-order it. And of course, I just lost it. It comes out. You can pre-order it. It comes out on July 14th. So that's right before jury selection, really 16 days before jury selection. And here's the cover. The Idaho 4, An American Tragedy by James Patterson and Vicky Ward. And they've got all kinds of access to people, they claim. So they've got James Patterson and journalist Vicky Ward. So let's get back down to the motion and see what Ann Taylor is saying about this. Cindy Hollenbeck says, I will only read a book about this by a local author. That's really interesting. Cindy, of course, lives in the area, and she's going to come on with us one night. So she lives out there in the Moscow, Pullman, Washington area. So she's got a great perspective. All right, now back to the motion, and let's listen to what Ann Taylor, we'll talk about some of this stuff, but let's look at what Ann Taylor has to say about Dateline, because we haven't heard from Ann Taylor about this. She was, you could tell, not happy at the pretrial conference last week. Nobody looked particularly happy. I mean, who would be happy about this so close to trial? But she didn't say anything. It was just too quiet, as I mentioned on last weekend's live. So here we go. Let's start at the top. A continuance is also necessary to investigate and remedy the prejudice of highly inflammatory publicity released just weeks before the current trial date, including the recent Dateline NBC special and a forthcoming book. This case has garnered substantial public interest, and the court previously issued a non-dissemination order restricting the release of certain information to the public in order to preserve the integrity of the proceedings and safeguard Mr. Kohberger's right to a fair trial. On May 9th, 2025, just weeks before this capital trial is set to begin, Dateline NBC aired a 2-hour episode about this case titled The Terrible Night on King Road. The program includes details and materials, including video footage, cell phone records, and photographs of documents that are not publicly available through official channels. The show repeatedly emphasizes the non-public nature of this information, stating it was obtained from unnamed sources who are close to the investigation, and that the materials were obtained exclusively by Dateline. Much of the investigative, she puts it in quotes, material presented by Dateline was taken out of context, and she says it will not be admissible at trial because it lacks reliability. So that is very interesting, because I was thinking possibly she would seek to suppress some of this evidence at trial, and she may still be trying to do that. But she's saying some of it lacks reliability. So what lacks reliability? Because Google searches don't seem like they lack reliability. The photos don't seem like they lack reliability. So what is it? I don't know. The leaked materials appear carefully curated to promote a narrative of guilt. As this court acknowledged in its May 15th, 2025 documents and records hold order, the source of the leak is most likely someone currently or formerly associated with law enforcement or the prosecution team. If that is the case, it raises urgent and serious questions about the objectivity, judgment, and credibility of the individuals tasked with investigating and presenting the state's evidence, particularly those who may be called as witnesses. So she's saying right there, this leak, if they're, she's saying the leaker or leakers. I mean, she's kind of right about that. I mean, they have an obligation. I played the clip from Mark Weaver for you guys over the weekend, where he said, the people on that law enforcement side and the prosecution, they're kind of held to a higher standard when it comes to this stuff. So putting that stuff out is kind of like, as a news person, you do get information sometimes that isn't out in the public, and you do get that information, but they got the goods. Like, they got all of it. And I'm going to play something for you really soon. Oh, True Crime with the Sarge. Hey. Hi, True Crime with the Sarge. If I send you a link, will you come on? Because Ann Taylor is finally, True Crime with the Sarge and I did members only live on Law and Crime yesterday about this. If I send you a link, you could come on and we could chat about this, because Ann Taylor now is opining about this. She's asking for a continuance. So I could send you a link and you could come hang out with me for a sec and talk about this for a few minutes, whatever time you have. So I'm so excited that Joe is in the chat. True Crime with the Sarge, guys. You should subscribe to him. He is Joe Jackalone. He's wonderful. Oh, he says, sounds good. Okay, so he'll come on. I'm going to send him a link. Sorry, I was behind on the chat. Here, Joe, I'll send you a link right now. So Joe's going to come on. Just got to figure out, let's see. All right, this will be great. Sorry, guys, I'm sending Joe the link so he can come on. All right, Joe, I sent it. Okay, Psychosaurus Rex says, I'm supposed to be able to watch this trial on my birthday, and better not ruin that for me. Well, let me tell you, I don't think she's the one doing it. I don't think Anne's the one doing the ruining for you. It's whoever the leaker is, I guess, right? Taya Toys says, Sarge has a cool theory about hotel coffee. Please ask him. I will. Okay. That kind of scares me, though, but I'm not a fan of hotel coffee. It grosses me out. So as soon as Joe comes on, we're going to talk about this. Nina Drew says, maybe this was Ann Taylor's doing. I don't think so. I really don't. And there he is. Joe Jackalone. Hi, Joe.
I just that was the fastest setup in my life I think I ever did.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. I was so excited to see you in the chat. This is exciting. So Ann Taylor has filed a motion for a continuance, and I'm not surprised. I mean, it's 40 pages, so I feel like they were already working on this, and then the Dateline bomb got dropped in their lap, and so they just slid the Dateline into the last 4 pages of this thing.
Yeah,
So,
it was a bit of an afterthought, I'm sure. But like I said, if you want to see my shocked face that this is happening, all right, here it is. I mean, we spoke about this a little yesterday when we were doing the question and answer on crime. I mean, if we didn't think that this was going to happen, I thought, you kind of kidding yourselves. I mean, this is a major breach. I mean, there's a gag order in place. Whoever did it. Like I said, it's about the timing, right? Did they have this information ahead of time and then were just withholding it for months or whatever, and then just decided to do it, or how long NBC has been sitting on it? But I don't think it's gonna be too hard to figure out who did it.
See, I don't either. Joe and I agree on this. Other people are like, well, they're never going to find out who did it. I'm sorry. In this day and age, there's not much you can do without like leaving a digital fingerprint. I
Yeah.
mean, unless you're doing like Watergate style where you're putting like like the in the movie with Robert Redford and Dustin Hoffman where you put the like what did he do? Put like a flag in the flower pot or something
Yeah.
and then like they would meet in the and this is nothing like Watergate. I hate it. If somebody is saying that, they're so wrong. This is not the same thing. But, it's just,
Well, we're dealing with a really small pool of people here. I mean, I
yeah.
think they said what they were going to interview 30 or 35 people, and
Uh,
of and
I don't know. I mean, I think it could be, it might be a little more than that. I don't know. I don't know about 30 to 30. Who knows? Possibly. But it's not going to be that hard to find out. And with subpoenas and stuff like that, you can figure it out. I'm assuming this is not the crime of the century.
no.
Like that they may even have a good idea of who did this.
And I think the judge was trying to out them ahead of time to avoid all this stuff. So they give them the prosecution a week basically to come up with a plan. So it's like, here, you got 7 days to have a plan ready. And I think that was all right, 7 days, find out who it is and make them come forward. And I think
Yeah.
that's part of the deal.
Yeah, I was thinking, I think you're right about that. And I also think that the whole, Hitler saying, we can all, I'll be looking for a request for a special prosecutor from you. I mean, that was meant to send a chill, and he's talking about immunity. That was meant to send a chill down the spine of,
Yeah.
of any person involved in this. And, and I'm not talking about Dateline. I'm talking about the people who were trusted to hold this material and then like handed it over. So Joe, just to bring you up to speed, you've got people saying they've just subscribed to your channel, which that
Oh, thank you.
is great. Thank you for doing that, guys. And remember, like and subscribe, give a thumbs up on this video on the stream to help with the algorithm. So Joe, Ann Taylor and her motion to continue, which I think she's been working on this for some time because it's chock full of stuff about how like they just haven't had time to review discovery. They're still gathering information about Kohberger's family history. They're doing all this stuff that they haven't had time to do. And she said, we've done everything you've asked us to do, but we need more time. And then they slide all this Dateline stuff in on page 32. So I think that got kind of dropped in there at the last minute. Webby just dropped Joe's channel link in the chat, so you can get to it there. So let's pull up Ann Taylor's motion. She was just too quiet in court last week, so you knew she had something cooking.
Yeah. Every time I hear Ann Taylor, I think of the
The clothing store.
the clothing store. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So Ann says, for also Joe, there's a book coming out by James Patterson on like July 16th or something, or right before the trial. There's a book coming out. So she talks about that too. But she says that the leaked materials appear carefully curated to promote a narrative of guilt. As this court acknowledged in its May 15th, 2025 documents and records hold order, the source of the leak is most likely someone currently or formerly associated with law enforcement or the prosecution team. If that is the case, it raises urgent and serious questions about the objectivity, judgment, and credibility of the individuals tasked with investigating and presenting the state's evidence, particularly those who may be called as witnesses, the identities of those involved, their motives, and any efforts to conceal their conduct go directly to the heart of witness credibility and the integrity of the state's case. As a retired cold case sergeant, Joe, if you had somebody under you, a subordinate, and you had a big case, and you found out a subordinate of yours, one of your detectives, handed some information over to a national media outlet that was discovery material, what would your reaction be?
Yeah, this is in law enforcement realm. This is the equivalent of treason because you're trying to build a prosecutable case, and now you have somebody that's really undermining it. And in New York City, boy, it could be a fireable offense. So anybody who, yeah, I mean, New York City, we had some pretty stiff rules about releasing anything to the media unless it went through the deputy commissioner of public information.
Mhm.
Specifically, when we had Ray Kelly as the police commissioner, if God forbid you ever got caught either talking to the media or even quoted in the media and you didn't have permission, you were in a lot of trouble. But this giving out this kind of information, because just to push back, I know a lot of people think that this was possibly done by the defense in order to get an appeal ready when they're losing. I can't see the defense. I would be really upset if my lawyer was doing something like this, because you're already admitting that you're going to lose this case. That would not be a good look. So everything that we saw on that Dateline special is pro prosecution for sure. I mean, the video surveillance, those I think the most damaging things were the internet searches on the Amazon, with the sheath and then the knife in the sheath and then the delay and then the dropping it out of the cart or the basket, whatever you want to call it. I think those things are pretty damaging for the defense.
Yeah. I I just don't see, I'm not saying that it couldn't happen, that the defense couldn't have leaked this, but I do not see, I certainly think they're using this to bolster their request for a continuance. They were always going to ask for a continuance, but
Yeah.
I don't think that this benefits them. This, basically putting stuff out there that makes your client look creepy and weird, even though he's a criminology student searching Ted Bundy, like that, that I can, like, that's fine. But the porn searches and stuff like that, I'm not even sure. I'm not even sure the porn searches make it in, to evidence, since this was not a sexual assault. There was no sexual assault carried out. So stuff like that just makes him look really, really creepy and bad. So yeah, I'm going to get back to the thing, and then I'm going to play some of the Keith Morrison thing. The apparent leak is not only an egregious violation of the court's non-dissemination order, and enabled Dateline to gild rampant speculation with a veneer of credibility when purportedly exclusive information surfaces through a media broadcast shortly before trial, particularly information attributed to unnamed sources. With access to the investigation, it carries a heightened aura of credibility and secrecy that can deeply influence public perception. And it kind of does. Like, I get her point, because it sounds like it's like, we got this secret information that nobody else has, and we can tell you about it. And it does kind of like,
Yeah.
it seems very like, ooh, they've got some inside information. Unlike official disclosures, which are typically accompanied by context and procedural safeguards, leaks framed as exclusives are perceived as uncensored truths that the public was not meant to see. This insider framing enhances the material's persuasive power, suggesting that it is both authentic and revealing of the case's hidden realities. The episode includes things such as repeated speculative assertions regarding the assailant's motives, including unfounded allegations of sexual motivation, hence the porn, the
Mhm.
porn searches, dramatic reenactments and animations depicting the alleged crime created by the show's producers without basis in the evidentiary record. Emotional interviews with the individuals connected to the alleged victims, accompanied by evocative music, photos, and videos designed to elicit strong emotional responses. The broadcast repeatedly bolstered its speculative claims through the use of so-called expert commentary, including individuals identified as law enforcement professionals and academics. These commentators were permitted to make sweeping assertions about the defendant's alleged motives, psychological state, and personal history, none of which are grounded in evidence before the court, while the program repeatedly emphasized their training, research, and years of experience to lend undue credibility to their conjecture. This type of testimonial mimicry improperly mirrors expert witness testimony in a trial setting without the safeguard of cross-examination or evidentiary standards, effectively presenting the public with a one-sided, unvetted narrative that shapes juror perception before any admissible evidence has been presented. How do you feel about that claim, Joe? Because some of the stuff that was said in that when I was watching it, I won't name names, but some of it I was a little bit like, really? Like,
Yeah, no,
come on.
yeah.
You haven't evaluated the guy. You're just going off what, it's obviously speculative.
Well, yeah, it is all speculation, right? So, I mean, they don't know. They don't have access to the case file and stuff. I mean, they can speak, of course, and experience, and maybe it was something similar in another case. When I was watching some of the things, I was going, "Oh God, please don't have any of my comments show up in this thing." That's what I was thinking. But I mean, I knew nothing really was going to show up from me because I was pretty much, on board with. I was really worried about the police investigation. So anytime I actually had done any of the media stuff, it was actually against the prosecution in a lot of ways. But I digress for a second. But yeah, no, I mean, the only thing that I would say for the prosecution still even the porn searches though, because as we know, many crimes have a sexual component to it. It doesn't actually have to be the act itself, just the drive and that initiative to do it is often referred to as that. So I
Mhm.
still think that's an important thing for the prosecution to try to push through, specifically when he was looking for blondes and brunettes, and he's got pictures of girls with bikinis and stuff like that. So I think there could be a correlation that they could make with that. So, Ann Taylor, she did her homework here. She actually laid out the whole thing for. I think there'll be additional motions after this because, like I said, I thought that this was pretty damaging to the defense's case. I mean, they haven't seen to the jury yet. I mean, they already moved the venue because they didn't think they could get a fair trial. Now we're going to be doing this again, and I think that just kind of causes lots of grief and unnecessarily so at this stage of the game.
Yeah, I think if I were Ann Taylor, I would be working every angle I could based on this.
Sure.
And especially with this book coming out, this James Patterson book. I mean, come on. Like
Yeah,
the
I've
Dateline
never
thing
seen
that
like this before.
what's that?
I'm sorry, I said I've never seen this many books and stuff written about everybody's rushing to get something out before we even
Yeah,
go to trial.
before the trial even starts. So I think it's pretty interesting. Like if I were her, I'd be like filing to dismiss this case. I would, because my client has been so prejudiced. If I, and obviously I'm not an attorney. I just like I've been covering this stuff for years and I just am thinking about all the things I've seen over the years. But I'd be filing to dismiss the charges. That's never going to happen. I would be filing to suppress all this stuff that aired on Dateline because
That
it's
could
so
happen.
prejudicial. Yeah,
That
you
could
think that
happen.
could happen?
Well, I definitely think she's setting herself up to do that. So she's laying it out in this motion. But like even for myself and you have even we've stated that there's some key points that she makes here. Like I said, yes, I'm not a lawyer, but it sounds to me, the layperson, meaning not the legal mind here, this sounds reasonable and rational that this could affect the outcomes of certain things. So if could you just imagine though, if let's say she puts out that motion and the judge decides that he is going to dismiss any of this stuff. I mean, wow, talk about a major hit to the prosecution's case.
Yeah, totally. And I'm sure she's going to file a motion to strike the death penalty again, too, based on this. Mandy, thank you so much. This is very sweet of you. Thank you for the super chat. Mandy asks if the judge finds the leaker or leakers, Joe, will it be publicly revealed prior to trial? Like who did it? That's a great question because I'm sorry, but this judge is not playing, Joe.
No.
And he could say, I don't see Judge Hippler just being like, "Oh, okay, you're the one that did it, or you're the 3 or 4 people that did it. Okay, yeah, now I know your names."
Yeah,
No,
like
he's gonna
yeah,
be
doing
like,
like this. No.
no, it's gonna be contempt or worse.
Right. Well, I think it starts off as civil, but I think he has the power to change it to a criminal contempt. And here's the other issue with this, and like I had mentioned to you yesterday, he speaks softly but carries a big stick. I mean, he's not messing around, and I think yes, they will make an example out of this person or persons as a form of deterrence, because we don't want to see any more in this case. But also, I think it sends a message to all the other cases out there. Don't do this, because now we're starting to look at this as a crime. And if we find out who did it, I mean, think about Anjanette for a second. If money was involved, and you have now
Yeah.
a public servant, I mean, this starts reverberating like some huge issues in the criminal justice system. So it's not good. It really isn't.
Yeah. Mandy says most of the public does not follow true crime, and fewer people use cable TV anymore. They can find a jury, no problem. But this was on broadcast television. That's the thing. It
Yeah.
wasn't on cable.
Yeah, and this is
Um,
Idaho, so even though it's a big state, there's not a lot of people in it.
yeah. 500, I looked up the population of Ada County the other day. This is the biggest county. It's like 535,000 people. Certainly bigger than Latah County. That was like, I think 72,000 or something like that, but it's not a big county. And you have to imagine, I mean, not, a lot of people don't watch TV news anymore, but this was on, there were articles written about this. I don't know, but also too, I was telling people, I literally had somebody at my house last weekend who had never heard of this case. So, yeah.
Well, like I
Ms.
said, the kids don't hear, they don't watch anything. There's my students, they don't watch the news. They have no idea.
Yeah, they're all on TikTok. TikTok or Instagram or whatever. Miss Woozy, does the gag order apply to only the parties involved with the media as well? Does not apply to the media. You
Now,
can't
freedom of the
gag the
press.
media. Yeah, we have First Amendment right. The press has the First Amendment right. The families are not gagged. It's just the lawyers, the cops, defense, prosecution, all that stuff. Cindy says Moscow has 26,000 people in it. Yeah, so that's a small city. So the county is even smaller, or it's bigger, pardon me.
I
Nomad. Oh, Nomad's here. Nomad was in our chat yesterday
Oh,
on
there you go.
our
Hey, no,
members
man.
only. Hi, Nomad. Thanks for coming over. Appreciate that.
There are
Um,
2 million people that live in Idaho, and just think about this. There's nearly 3 million people that live in Brooklyn alone.
yeah,
Just to give you the size comparison there.
yeah. Maybe they just need to move it to Brooklyn. Be a bunch of fish out of water there. They're all we can't move this trial to New York. They wouldn't let cameras inside. So
Yeah. Oh God.
can you imagine? I
We,
do
we
like
got to do a show on that though, when this Long Island serial killer hits, because that's going to be a big deal too.
yeah. This oh gosh, look at this. Carol Jogi says, "Thanks Carol for watching." She says following this case all the way from Trinidad.
There
So
you
she's
go.
watching it in Trinidad. Okay, wow. Wow. That's amazing. Let's see. Psychosaurus Rex says a total of 0 of my friends who are involved in the forensic psych world have heard anything about this case. It always surprises me because I'm like, welp, I know enough for all of us. Wow, that's amazing.
Well, you know what though? This actually goes with what I always say. It was crime is local, right? So everything
Yeah.
kind of, it's a big deal in Idaho, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. It's been a big deal and I do understand that a lot of people don't watch the news, a lot of people don't follow crime, and maybe they can find a jury easy peasy. But still, I mean, what was aired to me was like, it made him look weird and creepy. So if you let's say you had kind of forgotten about this case and it fell off your radar and you just happened to be watching Dateline, or you were like, "Oh yeah, I remember when that happened. Oh yeah, that's going to start." And then you see this like guy in all these black hoodie selfie things and um let's just pull up one of those selfies for a second. I'm only pulling up the one that I think is the creepiest of them, and I'm not calling Bryan Kohberger creepy because I honestly, when I look at him, I just see a guy. I just see some guy. I don't, but I saw this picture and I was like, oh, that like
Yeah.
startled me. I thought it was fake when I first saw it on X. But I was like freaked out a little bit. I was like, oh my God. I was like, what the hell is he doing? Like, what is that? It is kind of creepy, but I
And this
just,
picture was picked on purpose because it matches the description of what the eyewitness said. Somebody wearing all black with like the
yeah.
balaclava, right? I mean, this fits the narrative, so that's why they used it, and that's really what makes this really unfortunate.
Kimberly Jones, hello. Thank you for coming in. Hi, how are you? We have a lot of people coming into the chat. So everybody, if we're missing you, I'm sorry. Your Kiwi mate. Hi, how are you? Thanks for coming in. So I'm trying to hit everybody that comes into the chat. Diana Yunt, thank you for coming in. So Rich, buddy, hello. Messica, hi. True Virgo, hello. All right, we're going to go back to the motion now. Let's read the rest of what Ann Taylor has to say. All right. While the program occasionally inserts disclaimers, such as "we don't know what happened," these brief caveats do little to mitigate the cumulative impact of an extended narrative constructed through selective imagery, emotionally charged reenactments, and detailed speculative descriptions of the crime. When viewers are presented with a cohesive, visually reinforced sequence of events, especially when paired with commentary from individuals styled as experts, the overall presentation fosters a sense of authenticity and truthfulness that is difficult for viewers to disregard. An occasional passing verbal disclaimer functions more as a legal formality than a meaningful check on prejudicial perception, and most viewers will leave with the impression that they have seen a reliable reconstruction of events. I can see that, Joe.
Yes, well, specifically, right? I mean, I thought I was surprised, and maybe you were too, about finding out, according to this Dateline show, that Zaina, actually fought this guy when it was not found in the bedroom.
Yeah. Um, you're saying that she wasn't found in the bedroom?
No, from what I understand is that she comes down the staircase, that comes
Oh
down the
yeah,
stairs.
that was one. They said that's one that's a theory, or I don't know if that's the theory of the team or one of the investigators'
Yeah,
theories, but yeah, that she went up the stairs. That's one of the theories, or a theory, or the theory that Xana hears, she's got her DoorDash and she hears all this ruckus in the kitchen, and she goes up the steps, and that she then is chased down the stairs by
yeah.
the killer and into her bedroom. What I thought was kind of wild is that there was information released, Joe, that only the killer would know. So I found that to be a little bit like, whoa, because, like, let's say there's a confession. I'm sure maybe there's other detail that only the killer would know, but that kind of was like stunning to me, because there was information released, like the blood impressions left on the chair in Xana's bedroom. They believe the
Said it
killer sat down.
sat down. Yeah,
That is only something the killer would know. Like, I got tired. I was so exhausted. This feeling came over me and I sat down, like, who else knew that? I didn't know that. I'd never heard that before. I
yeah,
certainly hadn't heard about the one strike to Ethan. There was,
yeah.
Cindy
And the
says
whole thing
Xana was in the hallway.
about the carved legs too.
Yeah.
That he had. Yeah, that one I'm a little, up in the air about that one. But this there was some information, like you said, only the killer would know. But this was also my theory when they said, well, how come he didn't kill the person that saw him? Whatever. I think he was just, whoever this person was, if it's not Brian Kohberger, somebody else, was in just such a state of mind that they
Like,
just,
get
yep,
out. It was
yep.
fight or
And
flight, and
it's
that was
exhausting.
flight at that time.
I mean, I tell people, if you're not, really that in shape, even try to hit a punching bag for 2 or 3 minutes if you've never done it, and then see how you feel afterwards. Forget about what you're actually doing, because then that's a whole other psychological aspect of it too. But I think that's a decent explanation about why that person left without harming anybody else.
Yeah, and the way the lighting was in that house too, like, they had the, like, good vibes sign on. I wish I had a good diagram of the house, but they had, if you're walking out of Xana's room and you go down that small hallway, people are saying she was in the hallway, but it was my understanding she was in the bedroom with her head toward the wall and her feet at the floor, at the door. But you walk through that small hallway and then back toward the living room, and there's that one wall there with the grassy thing with the good vibe sign, and then they had those twinkly lights. So, given whatever, you've got a little bit of lighting, and then you're just trying to get the heck out of there. you may not really see that there's somebody standing there in the doorway.
Yeah.
Mandy has a comment. In some of those pictures, he looked like he was on drugs to me. Is it just me? Anything's possible, right? I mean, they found
Anything.
marijuana, I think.
Yeah, anything's possible for sure.
Yeah. Let's go on now to back to the motion. Let's go back and finish what she says about this. All right, the Dateline special, which aired just weeks before the trial date, will not even be the last pretrial media bombshell. Best-selling crime author James Patterson has written a book about the murders titled "The Idaho 4: An American Tragedy," scheduled for release on July 14th, just 16 days before jury selection is slated to begin. The blurb for the book describes Mr. Kohberger as a brilliant grad student, loner, apparent incel, and explicitly tells the reader, now you are the jury, the evidence is in. The publisher boasts of unmatched access to the investigation,
Yeah.
including interviews with local law enforcement. Joe.
Mhm. Why? Why this is, and here we are with Sixth and 14th Amendment has to do with the due process clause that was applied, that was the federal law applied to the states. And the Fifth Amendment, if for those that are, do the quizzes and stuff, the Fifth Amendment is the one that apply due process to the federal government. So yeah, and the Sixth Amendment, right to counsel and everything else that goes along with it. So she's starting to hit on all cylinders. I know that's her job, that's what she does for a living, but I think she's building herself up a decent argument here, and then the future one is coming. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised if we didn't see that argument in the next couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's move on to the next part. The Sixth and 14th Amendments guarantee the right to a fair trial by an impartial jury. A continuance is necessary to fully investigate the leaks and to mitigate the prejudicial effects of such inflammatory pretrial publicity occurring so close to the current trial date. This is interesting to me, Joe, because let's think about this. If you're going to put cops up on the stand to testify, shouldn't you try to do an investigation into who leaked this stuff first? Because it does go to their credibility and trustworthiness, shouldn't you try to figure that out
Well,
before?
if you're the prosecution, you definitely want to know ahead of time, because if not, you don't want to find out during the actual trial. If the defense finds out, let's just say, and then they kind of pull the rug out from underneath you, and that would destroy that person's credibility on so many levels. And we've seen this already happen in Canton, with the Karen Reed case, where some things that come out as surprises, your witness gets destroyed, and then forget about the credibility on that point. It goes right out the window.
Well, and remember in the Delphi case when those horrible pictures of Libby and Abby were leaked, those crime scene photos, that did come from the defense. And it was like some friend of one of the lawyers came into the
Yeah.
office and took pictures of the stuff. It was like out on the desk, like in a conference room or something. It's like, oh my, like, would you just die? Would you just die if that happened? Like, what the hell were you thinking? But that would be insane. Mr. Popinski says they have to find the leaker or leakers before the trial starts. I kind of agree with that.
I agree.
I mean, because
I agree.
if they don't, if I'm Ann Taylor, I ask every person they put on that stand whether they had contact, or I question every one of those people they put on the stand.
Well, I mean, like I said, we're talking about, possible. You got to remember, you can't eliminate the FBI out of all this either, because they're involved in
Right.
this case. So you have the Moscow police, you have the Idaho State Police, and you have the FBI. So yeah, there are a number of people that could be considered in this whole thing, because when you just read the other thing about the James Patterson book, I mean, it specifically says they have access to law enforcement.
Local
Yeah, yeah.
local law
You're like,
enforcement.
you don't need a slide rule to figure it out. It says it right there for you in black and white. I mean, I understand why the book is coming out 2 weeks before the jury
They're
selection, because
trying to
that
sell
helps with
books.
yeah, it sells your books. But I mean, at what cost? And Jeanette, I have never seen anything like this, because you had the Howard Blum book, that came out already on this.
Yes.
There's been a couple of books on this, and each one is caused ripples in certain things. But I think the NBC Dateline and now this Patterson book, I think it's going to be like a 1-2 punch in this, and I wouldn't be a bit surprised if we see a delay.
Cindy, I saw your comment and I'm trying to find it now. You had asked, you were confused about how Xana was found. The latest court documents have said that Xana was in her bedroom, but that her head, um, that her head was toward the wall, but her feet at the door. So when
Yeah.
Dylan was running to BF's room, she saw her on the floor and thought she was passed out drunk. That was what it said in the latest court documents. So Messica asks, victim's family member. One said he had more info from LE that he couldn't share. That's the thing, though. You know, that's the thing, Joe. A victim's family member shouldn't have access to discovery material. It's one thing if law enforcement tells them some information, but they don't hand them discovery material.
No, but if you also recall, and one of my big contentions part was that the police were giving back during the active crime scene, giving back family members, pieces of furniture and everything else that was going on,
Yeah,
trinkets and stuff like that.
that
I
should
was
not have
losing,
been done.
I was losing my mind at that. That
Yeah,
was something. No way, no how.
no, that should never have happened. Like it was like, because you never know when you're going to have to. I know they had processed the scene already, but you don't know when you're ever going to have to go back in there. So they needed to leave that alone.
Well, and if you recall, shortly thereafter that they closed down the crime scene, they brought in the cleaning crew, only to shut it down again and then reopen the
Yes,
crime scene again. And then you had the chief with
yes.
the U-Haul truck and mattresses. And, oh my God, yeah,
I
no,
was
this is
there that
this.
day. I was there. We were Christian. We were paired up together, Christian, the photographer, and I. We were out there and we were shooting. Well, I mean, he was shooting the video. I probably had little iPhone videos. But yeah, I remember we were there and we were just like watching them haul all that stuff out of the house. And Chief Fry, what a
Mm,
nice man Chief Fry is. And he came over and gave us a little soundbite thing, little press conference thing about how they wanted to give these things back to the family, which I totally get, Joe. Heart is in the right place, but
yeah.
not what you need to do, not what you should
No,
do.
no, no. Yeah, and I saw that and I was screaming at the television, no, no, no.
Right.
And I did speak about that publicly on a we won't name the channel, but I was on another channel and I publicly spoke out about that, and I was really upset about it because you're dealing with a situation where you had this quadruple killings and the weapon used right up close and personal. There's lots of DNA evidence that goes flying everywhere, and you're giving this stuff back. It could have had blood on it or whatever else. I mean, you didn't do yourself any favors. Let's put it that way.
Mhm. We have a question from the Law and Crime Network. This is
Wow.
fascinating.
I'm putting my glasses back on.
Hello, Law and Crime Network. Thanks. Welcome to the chat. The Law and Crime Network wants to know, Anjanette and Joe, can you expand on your opinions about the alternate perpetrators the defense is presenting? Well, I think we can, and Anne actually talks about that later in her motion.
Yeah.
So, Joe, while I find that part of the motion, because we don't know who they're pointing the finger at right now because um, it's sealed.
Right.
The judge
And the
sealed it.
judge,
'Cause,
yeah,
like,
the judge,
can you imagine the frenzy if this
yeah.
was, you know Mm.
Well, the judge kind of told the defense to put up or shut up, basically, on this, and said, okay, you're talking about alternate perpetrators, then let's get it over with, right? Like, give us the paperwork on it. But this happens just about in every case, right? I mean, the defense is idea is to create that reasonable doubt when the time comes for for the jury. But you got to remember something: the defense can say anything they want in public. The prosecutor can't. And the defense can come up with any wild thing that they want to. I mean, the we saw it with we're actually witnessing it now with the Long Island serial killer case, where Michael Brown has come up with other people and saying things about the then district attorney. So this isn't unusual that you would have the defense say there's somebody else. It's not my client. They got it all wrong. I could tell you in the beginning, I was a little concerned in regards to, did they have the right guy? I was okay when I was hearing some of the things, but honestly, after what I had heard on the Dateline about the different things, I felt a lot more confident that this is the guy, that they
Mhm.
definitely had the probable cause to arrest him.
So I see people, saying that we're talking about conspiracy theories. Let me just tell you that in every case, I don't think I've ever seen a case where the defense, unless it was like a self-defense case or not guilty by reason of insanity, there's always like a some other dude did it defense. And that's basically what they're saying. They're trying to say some other dude did it, but they
Sure.
want to say they want to point the finger at somebody. They're talking about pointing the finger at specific people. So that's why this isn't a conspiracy theory per se. But Joe, this is what happens in cases. They're like, our guy didn't do it. That guy did it, or
Yeah.
those two guys did it, or that girl did it, or
Yeah.
that's this is what happens.
Right. That's why I was giving the audience another real life example that's currently happening right now, where the defense has said there's another guy. And you didn't, they were looking at another person and everything else that goes along with it. But that's not unusual. And like I said, the defense can come out and say
Mhm.
that. And it's not unusual.
Webby says Anne has been on the third party suspect from the get go. Yes. And they're going, just so everybody's clear on this, they're going with the defense is essentially saying 2 killers, 2 weapons. That's what they're saying. They have an expert who's going to testify that one person could not have done this in the time allotted, and that the weapons, or that the injuries the victims suffered are consistent, as coming from 2 different weapons. So that's what they're going to say: 2 killers and 2 weapons. That's what
Yeah,
they're
and this
saying.
was and this was also unfortunate too, because if you remember, the coroner leaked out some information. He was doing interviews in the very
Yeah,
beginning too. So, and he leaked out the information about the the knife wounds, and that kind of thing. So, which in the real world they refer to them as sharp force injuries,
yeah.
and that was another unfortunate part of this case where she came out and did that public statement, which was not a good thing.
And just so everybody knows, I mean, this case is horrifying. I mean, it's horrific. I mean, the stuff that is going to come out in this case, I think, is just absolutely beyond the pale. Tayo Toys is calling out law and crime. Boss is here. Pretend to be working. Tayo Toys has the best jokes always. I love it when Tayo
Yep.
Toys, Tayo
I know
Toys
him well. Yep.
in the
I know
chat.
him well. I know him
All
well.
right, all right. Let's get back to the motion. So this is the alternate perpetrator stuff from Ann Taylor. I'll hit on this, and then we'll get back to the. We're going to get back to the stuff that Ann Taylor was talking about with Dateline and all that. Cutting off this review, and this is about the alternate perpetrator and her needing more time, because remember, there's like 45,000 tips in this case, probably more than that by now. Cutting off this review before counsel can complete it would significantly prejudice Mr. Kohberger. The state's case is circumstantial. Mr. Kohberger was not identified as a person of interest until weeks after the crime, and after he was identified, law enforcement ceased investigating all other possibilities. While counsel can explain this in trial, every experienced trial lawyer knows that trials are essentially story battles. She's right. High stakes duels where the prosecution and defense each tell competing narratives about the same set of events. Ultimately, the jury decides which story feels more true and more coherent. Even though the burden of proof rests with the prosecution and the defense bears no burden at all, humans are driven by narratives that reality forces the defense to counteract the state's narrative with another compelling story. As scholars pardon me, guys, as scholars explain, where the central issue is the identity of the perpetrator, even a reasonable doubt case implies a story that someone else did it. But is it a story with a huge hole and one likely to be ineffective? The jury might speculate that if this defendant did not do it, there should be at least some evidence suggesting that someone else did. and it is especially incumbent on counsel to become aware of all existing evidence because alternate perpetrator evidence may be deemed inadmissible under Idaho law if it merely tends to mislead the jury that another person committed the crime. Thus, defense counsel's review of the discovery is not merely checking a box, it goes to the very heart of the ability to present a defense. So she's basically saying the cops have all these resources to put all this stuff together. They have one specific story about Bryan Kohberger. They didn't really investigate anybody else. Once they came upon him, they're like, we're done. And they ignored everything else. And they have a bigger job to do. The defense does. And they just haven't been able to review all this stuff.
Just
Joe?
from just from personal experience, I mean, from the investigator standpoint, we try to eliminate any possible additional people during our
Mhm.
investigation before we make the arrest. That's, the at the exclusion of all others was our mantra, because if not, then you kind of run into this. So, you got to remember that we have the state police in this and the FBI.
Mhm.
Do I think all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed? You can only hope so. I don't know. I haven't seen the case file, but I'm pretty confident in what they've already presented as regards to their probable cause affidavit. I mean, there is, the defense, as far as I'm concerned, has got some other issues that they're going to have to figure out in regards to doing this. But like I said, the defense is doing what you'd want your defense attorney to do.
Hi, Lindsay. Welcome. Welcome, Brenda. Music Lover Chicago. Hello. Sean Oliver. Hello. Don't be hating. Hello, Chipster. 412. Hello. Julianne Dutson. Hello. Unmasked True Crime. Hello. Hello, everybody. Corvina Thomas. Hello. Cindy says Moscow has not seen murders. Has seen murders, but not like this. Correct. I mean, I don't think anybody.
It's
Long
a
Crime
very
says, Long Crime says, boss is here. Anjanette is fantastic in her reporting and analysis. She doesn't need a boss. Hilarious. Oh gosh, that sounds very interesting. I'm like, ooh, that could be
Yeah,
taken a couple of ways.
I hope Lauren Crime Network shows up on my next feed, though. I tell you that, boy.
Hilarious. Okay, so let's get back to doing some others. Okay, let's get back to this other part of this motion. In Shepard v. Maxwell, the Supreme Court held that a defendant, and Shepard v. Maxwell, just so you guys know, this is going back a ways. Sam Shepard, the Sam Shepard case,
Mhm.
he was a guy in Ohio. Do you know the movie The Fugitive? It was that was based on the Sam Shepard case. It was up in the Cleveland area of Ohio back in like the 50s or 60s, probably the 50s. Accused of killing his wife and I believe his child. And it was a huge case and it was a huge media circus. Nothing, I mean, unlike anything you've seen today, where like reporters are all over the courtroom doing all kinds of crazy
Yep.
nonsense. The prosecutors leaking all over the place, telling all kinds of stuff. It was nuts. In Shepard v. Maxwell, the Supreme Court held the defendant was denied a fair trial due to massive, pervasive, and prejudicial publicity that the trial court failed to mitigate. The court emphasized the trial judge's responsibility to ensure that the defendant receives a fair trial free from the influence of prejudicial media coverage. The court explicitly noted that a continuance may be required to protect the defendant's rights. But where there is a reasonable likelihood that prejudicial news prior to trial will prevent a fair trial, the judge should continue the case until the threat abates or transfer it to another county not so permeated with publicity. Well, they've already done that, Joe.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah, no, I thought this was a great move on her part, bringing in the Shepherd case.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, remember this is all pre-social media, so everybody everybody and his brother is talking about this. It's definitely interesting. We're in unprecedented times when it comes to some of these cases now, with the amount of eyeballs on these cases. It's really, you know, it's really interesting to see how this develops.
Definitely. The Supreme Court has likewise recognized that the passage of time can significantly reduce the taint of media exposure, holding in Patton v. Yunt that even in a case involving extensive coverage of a confession, the delay between media saturation and trial reduced its prejudicial impact. The court has recognized that while pretrial publicity, even pervasive adverse publicity, does not inevitably lead to an unfair trial, the trial judge has a major responsibility. The measures a judge takes or fails to take to mitigate the effects of pretrial publicity may well determine whether the defendant receives a trial consistent with the requirements of due process. The timing of the trial is a key factor and ensuring juror impartiality, as emotional intensity and memory of prejudicial material tend to fade over time. Social science research supports this position. A comprehensive meta-analysis found that pretrial publicity significantly increases the likelihood of conviction, but that the effect is diminished when there is a temporal delay between media exposure and trial. In sum, the 2-hour Dateline episode is uniquely prejudicial in both tone and content. It constructs a speculative narrative around motive and guilt, features emotionally manipulative production elements, and amplifies unsupported theories through self-styled expert commentary, all timed to air just weeks before trial, when juror impressions are most vulnerable and voir dire least equipped to neutralize such deep-seated bias. The forthcoming book by James Patterson, which will arrive in the hands of potential jurors just 2 weeks before voir dire begins, promises to set off a new round of inflammatory negative coverage and to deepen the pervasive bias against Mr. Kohberger on the eve of trial. The court has already acknowledged that the Dateline special exposes a likely violation of the non-dissemination order, and Mr. Patterson's purported unmatched access to sources, including local law enforcement, suggests that multiple unauthorized disclosures have occurred. If you're the judge and you're reading this, are you just like, oh my God? Because I'm sure this came up in
Yeah.
the closed session, Joe.
Yes, and I'm sure he's saying the same thing that I say when I'm upset. I said if I had hair, I'd pull it out. At this point, it's detrimental to the case here for sure. And I think anybody who's reading this, if you read the whole thing, Ann Taylor is basically saying this leak had nothing to do with the defense because she's going hard and heavy at the judge and at the prosecution here.
She's basically telling this judge, like, this is in your lap. Like, they screwed up, and now you have to fix it.
Yeah, you have to mitigate it at least at this point, right? I mean, but
Yeah.
he is right. He came out and said that he's got the prosecution's got 7 days. He also said about the special prosecutor, which I think that he should just appoint at this point, and say we have a special prosecutor with that subpoena power.
Yeah.
You don't want to wait till you don't want to wait till this thing
Why
starts to
wait for
really.
Bill Thompson? I think that was a test of Bill Thompson. I think he's waiting to see if Bill Thompson actually submits the request.
That is one part of it, and I also thought that, like I said before, that person would just come forward and throw themselves on the sword, just to get this out of the way, because this is creating a bigger deal than I think a lot of people imagine. But when you have a gag order in place, you're looking at criminal contempt possibly at the end of it. I mean, I don't know what you were thinking.
I don't either. And I think it's more than one person. And I'm going to show everybody why I think that. So stay tuned. Hey, guys, if you're watching or just tuning in, thank you so much. Please hit the like button, the bell button, and subscribe. Especially hit that thumbs up button. It helps the algorithm to spread the word about the video. We'll wrap up this part of Ann Taylor's motion right now. Depending on the results of the investigation into the leaks, a continuance may be inadequate. Once the source of the leaks are identified and the full extent of misconduct revealed, the violations could warrant remedies more serious than delay. She's saying dismissal. This is what I think she's hinting at.
Yeah, or at least have that evidence thrown out. I think that's at the very least.
That too. That would be step one. I think she'd try for charges tossed first, but because the book, God only knows what's in the book.
I guess we're gonna have to get the Audible version and listen to it overnight. But we got hold on a second, right? I'm no joke when you bring that up, because the authors get those advanced copies. Those copies come out a month or so before you get your books. I mean, take it from me. You get your books about a month ahead of time. You get whatever they call them, the straw versions, with the different covers and stuff like that. But yeah, those are real things. They're out there already.
Mm-hmm.
I
Let's
mean, when you
look
look at the
at
date,
Mandy thinks it's more than one leaker as well. Let's see. At the very least, however, a continuance is essential to allow the extremely prejudicial impact to partially subside and to give the court and the defense time to fully investigate the scope of the violations. Oh, to give the court and the defense.
yeah.
Wow. So she's like, prosecution, you just get out of this. You guys have already screwed this up enough.
Well,
Go
that's what I said.
away.
When you read this, it's all she's going after the prosecution for sure, and that's what I said. I think she's just saying this has nothing to do with us.
Only then can the conditions necessary for selecting an impartial jury and ensuring a fair trial under the 6th and 14th Amendments be meaningfully restored. Well, let's skip to the very end. They always have, and in conclusion, this request is not made lightly. Defense counsel has worked around the clock, actively preparing for trial since appointment to this case, filed all motions in a timely manner, complied with expert disclosure deadlines, and had expected to proceed on schedule. However, it's become clear that without additional time, the defense cannot complete review of the necessary discovery, meaningfully respond to all of the state's amended expert disclosures, and incorporate the information into an effective defense and finish critical sentencing phase investigations. While prompt administration of justice is important to both the state and Mr. Kohberger, the constitutional guarantee of a fair trial outweighs modest delay. And because the majority of cases ending in the death penalty are later overturned for error, the public interest lies in ensuring a fair trial in the first instance. A continuance will ensure that Mr. Kohberger's fundamental constitutional rights are honored and that any verdict rendered rests on a fair and complete presentation of the facts, not on forced haste. So I talked to somebody earlier today who doesn't think that the Dateline thing is all that big of a deal. But even if people didn't see it, even if like the whole world didn't see it, Joe, it's the fact that the stuff got leaked in the first place.
Yeah, look, I understand. I didn't see whoever this was, but in that respect, yeah, I can understand things get leaked, things happen a lot, but something else is going on here. You had a gag order in this case. So, which doesn't happen in every case. So,
Right.
I mean, what do we do now? Sequester jurors and I mean, all the other things that go along with it in order to try to prevent this from happening even further. I mean, like I said, now we got the book coming out. So you got hit with a 1-2 punch. So, and you're just giving cannon fodder to the defense. And that's basically what they're doing. She's using this to every advantage of what she can do it for. So it's just a distraction. And you know what? It's positive for them.
Yeah, very well. It may end up being that way. So everybody, Keith Morrison did an interview about the Dateline special. I don't think I played this for you guys. Joe and I played this during the Law and Crime thing yesterday, during the members only chat. So Keith Morrison, like the day of the Dateline special or the day before, he gave an interview and he talked about what they had. So listen to what Keith Morrison.
Yeah, everybody listen to this. This is really telling.
Well, this is your friend Shane Bishop and I, but mostly Shane, has been working on this for a long time, since right back at the beginning, and has developed. Shane has a list of people who are on the inside and who are very good sources about what's happened here in Idaho. So we're familiar with a good deal of the evidence that the state will bring against Bryan Kohberger. His attorney is not speaking yet, but.
So he said it's not Ann Taylor.
Yeah.
It's not. Keith Morrison just told you guys it wasn't Ann Taylor. But they have good sources on the inside or whatever. So it's really something. Joe, your thoughts on what Keith Morrison basically said: sources inside the investigation, a list of people.
Yeah,
there's a list.
There's a list of people, and he also he also says that we don't have all of it, but we have most of it. I think that comes up next. I
Yeah,
mean,
let's listen to that part. Here we go.
this
We
is what
have,
everybody needs to listen.
A lot of this material that
There it is.
the prosecution will rely on, I think, to try and. I don't know. I don't know. We can't say that we have it all, but we have a lot of it, and we can almost have a timeline of his movements and the movements of the killer, whether it was him or not, in the days, hours, minutes leading up to the murder and afterwards.
And of course, we get the ad,
Yep.
some little toadstool or something. But Ron Kroll, we'll play it again. I think he said it's something about inside. Now I'm forgetting. It's getting late. It's getting to be my bedtime, guys. Sorry, I'm gonna turn into what happens to a pumpkin? Is that what happens to Cinderella? Yeah, I'm gonna turn into a pumpkin here soon. I'm gonna wrap this up in a minute.
Bishop, and
here we go.
Well, this is your friend Shane Bishop and I, but mostly Shane, has been working on this for a long time, since right back at the beginning, and has developed. Shane has a list of people who are on the inside and who are very good sources about what's happened here in Idaho. So
a list of people who are on the inside and who are very good sources about what's happened in Idaho.
Yeah, not good.
So that's more than one. That says to me it's more than one person. And they've been working on it since the beginning. I don't think they've had this whole trove of information from the beginning, because it would have taken them a little bit of time to at least get the stuff off of Kohberger's phone and stuff like that.
Yeah, and also the thing is too, because I'm sure people think, well, why don't they just subpoena the records of NBC? That's a little bit of a taboo situation here, because we're dealing with the freedom of the press, First Amendment rights. It's a really dangerous position from law enforcement to get into that and start subpoenaing records for the against the media. So they're going to have to backward engineer this, figure out where the leak came into it, not from where it ended up, even though we know where it ended up.
Taya Toys says FBI. They did a lot on this. The FBI did a lot. They did the IGG. They did the phone stuff, the phone cast data. They've done a lot of stuff on this case. I mean, they were like stationed in Idaho or in Moscow for a while.
Well, like I said, I'm a little
but
upset.
It could be locals too. It could be the local cops and Idaho State Police. I mean, Dateline even had video of Kohberger being loaded onto the plane, the Idaho State Police plane, to be flown from Pullman to Boise.
Remember, we got Pennsylvania's included in this too, somewhere along the line. So you have to, they got a lot of stuff going on with that too.
Yeah. So, Joe, do you think this thing's getting delayed? Because I talked to a defense attorney earlier today who said, I don't think this Dateline thing is worth a delay. But what do you think is going to happen? Do you think the judge is going to be, out of an abundance of caution, could delay this trial because he's like, she's right. We have to find out who leaked this stuff, or at least do our level best.
Well, and if he didn't know about the book, now he does. I mean, it depends on how quick I think they can figure out who the leaker was, or if they can. If they can't figure out who the leaker is, boy, we're gonna have some issues. So I don't know. I still think that the judge is a no nonsense kind of guy, and I think he's going to want to push forward and get this thing done before something else happens. Because I think the longer this goes in between, if you already have all these leaks and you got this book coming out on top of it, I think you're really tempting fate at this point.
Long Island Hillbilly says the leakers have to be undeniably proved to be found. Otherwise, information will have no effect on the prosecution's case. True. True.
I like seeing my Long Island people.
Taya Toys said that LNC said to keep going for another hour. I doubt that. Hilarious. If they want me to be like awake for work tomorrow, I should probably like wrap it up. I mean, I would love to go. Maybe on Friday night we'll regroup. I can't wait to read the state's response. If you're Bill Thompson, how do you respond to this? Like, well, we don't need to delay. We're going to find leakers. I mean, what do you say? What do you say?
Well, it's going to be difficult to find leakers unless you start subpoenaing people. So, subpoenaing records. I mean, it's as simple as that. I mean, who had access to these things, the specific things, like the internet searches and the video surveillance? That those were all taken at different times. So the chances of, like you said, having more than one leaker is pretty strong.
Definitely. I think it's more than one person. And I'm just saying that because also I've worked in news for a long time. So I know how this stuff works.
Yeah. But I don't honestly, I don't think they go after NBC Dateline.
I mean, Dateline does what Dateline does. Dateline did what Dateline does.
Yeah. And if you don't think that their lawyers were consulted about this ahead of time, I think we're all, crazy in that respect. That they absolutely pushed this through.
Unmasked True Crime says, so sorry. I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying to click on stuff and then I click and it doesn't pop up right. Unmasked True Crime said something and now I lost it. I'm so sorry. I was pulling you up here. Yikes. Bill Thompson, Telltale Bites says, Bill Thompson, media attention is, she's going to quote Bill Thompson, media attention is not going away, Your Honor. Let's roll up our sleeves and get this done. I think Bill Thompson just wants to retire and go play more gigs in his band. He's in like 2 bands, I think, Joe.
Yeah. I mean,
your Kiwi mate has opinions about forget the leaks. Dateline are scum. Just start the trial. Hello, all. Hi, Jenna. Thanks so much for joining. Sion Faria, why the leakers can't be on the defensive side? I just think they're not.
Yeah, like I said, if you just saw that outline.
She fell in love. The leak is an entirely separate issue, in my opinion. It shouldn't delay the trial. A fair and impartial jury has nothing to do with what's reported by the media.
Yeah, well, that's what the argument is, if it can or not.
Yeah. Cindy says, absolutely, Dateline will never reveal their sources. She is right. They will not.
Yeah, they don't. And like I said, and if going after the media is a bad idea.
Yeah, it won't. That's never going to work. And the judge, I think, knows that. I think that's why they would go other routes.
Cindy's dating herself with me. Cindy and I must be in the same generation because she knows who Burl Ives is.
Well, I know who Burl Ives is too. So, it makes me think of the Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer. Yeah,
the snowman.
Thompson does look like Burl Ives. Yeah, he does. He looks like Santa to me. I call him Santa at work. It's hilarious. Well, guys, I'm going to wrap this up. It's been so fun. Joe, do you have any final thoughts before I wrap this up?
No, I think we're just going to wait to see what happens with this book, too, on top of it. I think we have a couple of things to look at, but I still think this thing kicks off on time.
Yeah. Well, we shall see. Maybe they just voir dire the heck out of that jury pool. And he said he's going to add like 8. It's going to be 8 alternates now. And he said he may sequester them.
Yeah, that's in like 3 months or so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Joe, thank you so much again for joining me. Everybody, thank you so much. If you're watching on replay, thank you. If you watched live, thank you so much. Like, subscribe, hit the bell, all that good stuff. I'll see you back here another time. And Joe, I hope we'll be back with me another time too.
Anytime you want.
Yes, thank you. And be well, everybody. I'll be, at work tomorrow. So check out Crime Fix on Law and Crime. See you later. Bye-bye.